You don't have a time management problem, you have an energy management problem. And until you build your days around how your body actually works, not how your to-do list thinks it should work, you will keep ending every week wondering where all your time went and why you're so exhausted and why you can never seem to make progress. Welcome to your daily hit of grace and grit, your quick dose of inspiration to kickstart your day. I'm Courtney Townley, and here is today's hit. So most of us build our schedules based on what needs to be done, right? I mean, I know this is the reality for most of us. We fill in the calendar, we stack the tasks, we set the alarms, we block the time, and we wonder why by Wednesday we're dragging and why by Friday we're completely empty. And rolling into the weekend, we're too exhausted to enjoy any of it. What we almost never ask are questions like, when does my brain actually work best? And for how long before I need a break? And when does my body actually have the most physical energy? When am I the most emotionally available? When do I tend to run on fumes? So in today's episode, we're going to fix that. First, I want to start by telling you that probably one of the most powerful ways I learned about my own energy management was by running a business, especially as a solo entrepreneur, right? I'm it behind my business. Yes, I have people who work for me, but really the success and failure of my business depends solely on me. And at the beginning, I was so excited to start the business, and I was so eager to do so many things that, of course, I had my hands in lots of pots. I didn't have systems. I didn't have boundaries. And I just felt like I was a whirling dervish, spending tons of resources, time, energy, mental bandwidth, even money, and not really getting anywhere. And of course, doing things the wrong way is often how we learn how to do things a better way. And that was true for me. I got so burnt out so many times, I eventually had to start asking better questions. And for myself, I really had to start honoring when I was the most creative in the day, which for me tends to be early in the morning. And what's interesting about that is I used to work out early in the morning. And so I had this kind of conflicting interest. I wanted to still work out in the mornings because it's my best physical self, but I also had the best creative energy at that time. So I compromised with myself that I would work out so many days a week first thing in the morning, but other days of the week, I would spend my morning on creative tasks. The other things I had to recognize was that I could really only focus on high resource activities, so activities that required a lot of mental bandwidth. I could only really focus for 90 minutes tops. And that's pushing it. I mean, I think a lot of days I can only focus for maybe 45 or 60 minutes tops before I need a break. Sometimes a 5-minute break is enough. Sometimes I need a 20 or 30-minute break. But what I realized is I can only take on so many high resource activities in a day because I can only focus deeply for so long in a day. So what that taught me was that big projects needed to be broken up into smaller bites. For example, this podcast, it doesn't all get done in one day. That would be lovely, but I would burn out and I would quit the podcast. So my podcast production starts in week 1 of the month. I'm already writing ideas of what we're going to talk about for the next month. I flush out the topics. I flush out the bullet points of what I want to talk about in each episode. Then I circle back and I fill it in with more research and quotes and stories I want to pull into the episodes. And then I have to spend another session recording episodes. So I break it into multiple chunks. And that has been enormously helpful to me. So something else that may be helpful, if I've kind of lost you there, hopefully I didn't, hopefully that made a lot of sense to you. But if you think about your energy like sunlight, A solar panel doesn't produce the same amount of power at 6 a.m. as it does at noon. And it doesn't apologize for that. It doesn't override its own nature and abilities because the schedule says so. It simply works with the light it has. And you, my friend, are a solar panel of sorts. And most of us are trying to power floodlights at dusk, meaning there's not a lot of energy available and we're trying to do really hard things. So the solution is not necessarily to work harder. It's to align the task with the energy that you actually have available, and also align the task when it's more likely that you will have the energy for the task. So let's break this down into some a practical framework. So you can think of this as energy blocking. We talk a lot about time blocking, but energy blocking, essentially, like tier 1 of it, is identify your peak window of energy. So for a lot of women, this is like maybe at most a 2 to 3 hour block of the day, often probably somewhere in the earlier half of the day. Not for everyone. Some people I know work really well at night. But for a lot of the clients I've worked with over the years, it does tend to be before noon. And this is where your focus is the sharpest, your decision-making is the clearest, and your threshold for distraction is the highest. So you're able to stay focused for long periods of time. You tend to be the most creative. This window is sacred, which is why I want you to start noticing where your window is. It belongs to your hardest, most important work. Not email, not administrative tasks, not laundry, not other people's requests. Your most meaningful tasks go into that window. Now, tier 2 of energy blocking is knowing your secondary window. So somewhere else in the day, usually for people who had their first tier in the earlier half of the day, your second tier will probably be somewhere in the second part of the day, like maybe even in the earlier afternoon or even early evening. It's where you have reasonable energy, but not peak sharpness. And this is where those kind of mid-level resource activities go. So maybe the meetings, the calls, the collaborative work, things that require energy and focus, but not as much energy and focus as those high-tier activities required that you did earlier in the day. And then you need to know what your tier 3 activities are, right? Protect that low window of energy. Like I will tell you, for me, this typically is anything after like 4 o'clock. The ongoing joke with my clients when I used to take clients later in the day was that they should be paying half price because I had less to give. I had like half the energy by the end of the day as I did at the start of the day. So it's, where do you notice that dip, that heaviness? And instead of fighting it with caffeine or guilt, what if you designed something restorative into it? So when you're starting to feel the slump, that's a great time to go for a walk, take a short break, do something physical to generate energy. You're not wasting time, you're recharging for the next wave. So again, I hope this helps somebody out there. It's a different way because we're so focused, again, on time management, which I also think is important. I'm not going to lie. I talk to my own clients a lot about time management. It is important. But I feel like in midlife, the energy management conversation becomes so much more important because I don't care what you block your time to do. If you don't have the energy on board to do it, it's not going to matter. So play with this a little bit. Start asking yourself some good questions. Where are your windows of higher energy and lower energy? And how might you organize your days just a little differently based on that? It's a good thing to consider. If this stirred something inside of you, imagine what a whole book of clarity and courage could ignite. The Consistency Code, a midlife woman's guide to deep health and happiness, goes even deeper into the mindset and practices that create real, meaningful change at midlife. Grab your copy today over at theconsistencycode.com and keep the momentum alive.